lot of great questions that come from and around Scripture in particular, but this one sort of opens it up for you guys. Are there any examples or teachings in the life of Jesus that especially speak to you on the issue of reconciliation?
There are many. I often go to what's said about Jesus as opposed to the life of Jesus. I often go to Philippians 2, as I mentioned earlier. It's just one of my favorite places to think about having power and not exploiting with it. I just find that a powerful, remarkable lesson for us. So I go there. I guess for me, though, is Jesus' comfort with folks who are on the margins that often also speaks to me. I mean, we've framed this discussion around race, and often, of course, the black-white paradigm starts to serve for other, just like the Jew-Gentile paradigm serves for other. So I don't apologize for it being black and white, but I do recognize that it serves for other other connections. But I also think in terms of sexism, I've noticed that there have been times when people will defer to me before my woman colleague, Pastor Rose on staff. Now, Rose is younger, but at the same time, she's a pastor, has a calling. But I've noticed, and not just that relationship, but other places too. So I feel like it's my job to sort of, deal with that and adjust to that. So one of my, watching how Jesus related to women as well as to other folks on the margin governs my life in terms of, at least I hope it does, in terms of my relationship in those kinds of areas, in class, race, and sex or gender relationships. So I would say it wasn't one particular episode in the life of Jesus, but Philippians 2 stands out for me.
If you read Jesus in his historical context, some of the stuff that looks kind of just run the mill to us is actually really significant because it's so countercultural at the time. So, like the way Jesus held up, like the story of the Good Samaritan. The Jews despised Samaritans. Exactly. Just hated them worse than Gentiles. But Jesus makes this guy, Luke 15, out to be a hero, or is it Luke 10, I guess it is, out to be a hero, and disses two priests on the way doing it, two Jewish priests. The first time that folks wanted to murder Jesus, it was because he was in his hometown and he stood up to read from Scripture, read Isaiah 61. This is the year of the Lord, and he came to set the captives free and all that. Well, the people were enraged because he then told two stories which involved two Old Testament heroes, Elijah and I forget the other one.
I'm not sure where you're going.
Okay, it's Luke 4, but their stories where a Jewish prophet walked past all these other Jewish folks to minister to a non-Jewish person, a Gentile. And they were enraged because, among other things, Jesus had just read from Isaiah, and he read the whole passage just as it was, but he left off the last clause where he says, when the Lord returns, he'll heal the blind and set the captives free. But he left off the last clause, which was, and bring vengeance against your enemies. And they wanted to get their enemies to get their due, and the enemies were the Romans who were ruling over them. And so this was an affirmation of the Romans. It was an affirmation that don't think that you're in first place or God's the only one that God cares about. In fact, another last thing. But you pushed my button. I got to go. Everyone at the time of Jesus was talking about the land. Israel, the nation, God's one holy nation. And if ever a nation had a right to think that it was special before God, it was the Jewish nation. But while everyone else was talking about the land and those nasty Romans who are occupying our land, Jesus never once talks about it. Never once talks about it. What he does say, however, is that you'll see people coming from the east and from the west to now join in this covenant that God's people had with Yahweh. It's just now it's going to include everybody. And so there's a lot of things like that he did that were just radically countercultural when you understand the immediate context.
Amen.